It's my pleasure now to invite one of the mentors of our next speaker up to the stage. So Springer, if you could join us. She's going to be sharing a little bit about Sofia and just a little bit about Springer. She is a TCBES graduate and also conservation person extraordinaire. She's done a wide array of things from policy to management to getting there in the dirt and making it happen. So welcome to the stage.
What's a good thing? All right, Sophia, are you ready? Okay, Sofia Suisui grew up on the North Shore of Oahu in Volcano. She earned her environmental science degree at UH Manoa and previously served as an intern with the Pacific Remote Islands Seabird Monitoring Program in Honolulu and with James Campbell National Wildlife Refuge in Kuluku. Sofia now lives up in Volcano, and in her free time, she enjoys trail running and birding. But I think I've run into her at a Ren Fair or Comic-Con once or twice. Sofia fulfilled her professional internship at Hakalau Forest National Wildlife Refuge, where she joined us as a Pathways student intern, which is a paid part-time federal internship for both undergraduate and graduate students. And if I can make a quick plug, Pathways internships do come with special hiring authority, meaning they're one of the best ways for Hawaii students to beat the mainland competition for a federal job. At Hakalau, Sofia chose to specialize in monitoring native avian populations and helped us greatly expand and improve our predator control methods. Her project balanced time between the refuge and Pohakaloa training area, so she was able to see how two very different natural resources programs do things, both individually and in our collaboration. She had the chance to focus on Nene at the refuge, to become a primary bird surveyor for forest birds, and to join in on monitoring and protecting very remote and rare seabird populations at PTA. In the 2 years she has been with the refuge, Sofia's earned a very special place in our hearts. Just a few of the things her mentors and coworkers have said about her. By that, Sofia is committed to the conservation efforts of Hakalau. She works tirelessly, providing support to many of its programs. We wouldn't be as successful as we are without her energy, input, and dedication. Her conscientiousness and humility are what I think of when Fia comes to mind. She is super driven and such a hardworking girl, no matter the weather, and is an absolute delight to have. Hakalau is so lucky to have her. What? Fia, she can handle, she go. This is said several times when I worried about sending her into the deepest, darkest parts of the refuge, which she totally handled. And Fia is an absolute angel who puts her whole heart into the work that she does. The work at Hakalau can be arduous. It requires nights away from family, sacrifices to social life and activity, creativity and resolve in some very trying times. So when we look for people who can pull their weight and be there for the long haul and support their colleagues, that whole heart is exactly what we're looking for. So we're very pleased to be able to say that we're just a few clicks away from, we hope, welcoming Sofia as a permanent member of our staff. Please join me in welcoming Sofia Suisui to present her work monitoring native bird populations in Montane protected wildlife refuges.
Wow, thank you so much for that introduction. Hi, aloha, my name is Sofia Suisui, and the next 30 minutes I'm going to be summarizing what I've done in the past 2 years in my presentation of monitoring native bird populations in Montane protected wildlife refuges. First, I just wanted to go over some details on my internship. Beginning in fall 2024, I began the Pathways Fish and Wildlife Professional Internship. This is a paid opportunity where students achieving their degrees are able to work half-time or full-time throughout the year at a federal service job. I was very lucky to be accepted into 2 internship sites with Fish and Wildlife Service and the Army Natural Resources Program. Both of these sites prioritize my position to be focused on threatened and endangered native species monitoring, invasive predator control, and interagency natural resource management. My focus is, in order to summarize what I've done clearly, will be on management actions I've been a part of, outreach events I've participated in, research projects that I've either assisted or conducted, and the many training opportunities I've been very fortunate to be a part of. Starting with my first internship organization at Hakalau Forest National Wildlife Refuge. This is part of the Big Island National Wildlife Refuge Complex, including Hakalau Forest Unit and Kona Forest Unit. Hakalau Forest Unit alone spans over 32,000 acres of Montane rainforest that has been part of an over 40-year effort for forest restoration. It provides critical habitat for 14 native birds, 8 of which are endangered, and 3, especially the Akiapola'au, alabi, and kepa, are focused on in the refuge for their limited distribution and their susceptibility to avian malaria. My second internship organization that I got to work with was the Center for Environmental Management of Military Lands, also known as CEMO. This is a research division of the Colorado State University. They're contracted by the Army Natural Resources Program to monitor threatened and endangered species on the Pohakalua training area. They manage multiple fenced units around rare native plant species and around a cryptic threatened seabird species, the bandruck storm petrel, which I'll be getting to in a little bit. This is just a map summarizing the conservation areas that my internship focuses in, primarily at PTA and Hakalau Forest Unit, since my internship was focused on nene and forest birds. So one of the first field actions that I did for my internship was right at the beginning in October. That was the start of the Hakalau nene nesting period. So nene translocations began on the refuge in 1997. For a period, they were primarily observed around the Shipman unit. Over the years, though, and there was a collaboration with the Army Natural Resources Program, and starting in 2017, there's more of an effort to focus on Middle Shipman and Puakala area, especially for trapping and monitoring nene nest and broods. Throughout the upper refuge units, I was monitoring our DOC 250 traps, which focuses on small invasive mammalian predators and common bear traps. So within those areas and Puakala, we had predator trapping, and we began nest monitoring, which was inventorying every nene over there, and when establishing general nest locations when found and data establishment, and then daily surveys of nest status throughout the week. Go a little more into the predator control, especially within our nene managed unit. Besides DOC 250s and common bear traps, we also, throughout my internship, utilize automatically setting traps, which have been proven very useful in New Zealand. The AT220s, which also focused on rats and smaller mammalian predators. SEML's help, we were able to output many live cat traps, which is more effective in catching slightly larger mammalian predators, including cats, which all of these predators are lethal towards our native bird species, but especially cats, mongoose, and are detrimental to nest success within Hakalau. So checking them daily and maintaining this trap line is an important part of protecting Nene on our refuge. Shortly after I started, I was lucky enough to be part of Hakalau's main outreach events, the Hakalau Walk for the Wild. So Hakalau Forest is a closed protected refuge. So either if it's not for like scheduled bird tours or volunteer events, there's not many large public outreach events, except for this Walk for the Wild event that is run by our staff and the Friends of Hakalau Forest. Since this did coincide with the start of Nene season, one of my main jobs was monitoring the Nene around the Puakala barn area, which the Walk for the Wild was at, and informing people about keeping their space away from them, and also educating them about how this is their breeding season. So as I started to work more with the SEML crew and Hakalau crew throughout the start of the Nene season, I started to get some observations of their behavior, and I'm particularly interested in animal behavior ecology. So I did notice throughout the season, there were definitely increased signs of aggressive behavior, especially vocalizations, some angry honks, especially in pairs and broods. I did throughout the season, there were one of the difficulties, which I then learned later on was a common difficulty in Nene conservation monitoring, was keeping track of broods from gosling to fledgling status. And that's one I thought, could we utilize some of these vocalizations with remote sensing technology to aid our surveys and help with nest and fledgling success. I'll get back to this. To be a part of my first training opportunity, which was beginner bird school. I was very excited to start this training because I very much wanted to become better at identifying our native species at Hakalau, not just visually, but also through their calls, which especially for native Hawaiian birds, vary immensely between species and between locations just on this island alone. So being part of this outdoor course run by the Wildlife Society and led by our nursery manager at Hakalau, I was able to start to study and become more familiar with the distinctive signs identifying native and introduced avian species at Hakalau. So as fall went into spring, the Nene season gradually ended, and through that I was able to now spend time at both Hakalau Forest and help with SEML of their work at Puakula training area. One of the first jobs I was helped to assist was their native outplant monitoring. They have many areas throughout the training areas that are fenced for protecting many native species. And this also include putting A24s and other automatic resetting traps to help reduce predation by rats for their seeds. And also I got to help with wildlife cameras to test their effectiveness and monitor their live cat traps, which had this really cool sensor on it called Skyhawk, which would actually notify managers of whether it's closed or moved, and that was a very helpful, cool piece of technology. I had more time to look through the biology files in the Hakalau server, and I found that there was a nene nesting success database ran by the former biologist Steve Kendall. So I decided I really was interested in looking at it since it not only has nest establishment date, nest location, and other, but I wanted to see throughout this period, in the period when Army Natural Resources Program brought in more trapping and management survey effort, if that did affect nesting success on the refuge as it spread from admin to Puakala. So I started doing data analysis to see if nesting success proportion was significantly different over the years. My preliminary results did display a significant increasing nest ratio across the time and additional management effort, which was very nice to see. We worked more into spring into March. Due to my Pathways intern position, I was fortunate to be able to assist as a secondary bird counter. These involve variable circle plot survey transects throughout the entire refuge, and pretty much it's going down the transects doing numerous bird counts in order to observe trends for native forest bird populations. Some of the general ones that I initially learned about was the akepa in the photo on the left, are generally in our lower transect area since they do prefer more mature native ohia forest, while Akea pula'au is more of a regrowth colonizer, which goes for so they can be observed also within our higher transect areas. So I learned this and got to practice my identification skills from beginner bird school and assist primary counters throughout the transect and also learn from them as well in bird ID. After my initial observations in the fall, I started to look more into the literature and study design of how I could utilize remote sensing and song meters for tracking nene distribution throughout their nesting season. The diagram on the left is actually from a study on nene's triumph ceremonies. So this is one of their aggressive displays that is described as them doing this after they chase off another nene away from their mate, and they do either the whole scenario or parts of it to display their aggression and dominance towards the other. And it's also associated with very loud honking sounds. So I thought it would be interesting if we could set up a study that using an ethogram, categorize calls throughout the nene season, and then collecting acoustic data, utilized acoustic software to see if there are certain areas that we could track these aggressive displays. So by becoming a full-time between Hakalau and PTA. For my first week in summer, I worked the whole week at PTA since it was their Bandrup storm rump petrel burrow detection and monitoring. That was the start of their season. So the Bandrup storm petrel was calling was discovered on PTA, and it's a very cryptic species. So they utilize song meters like SM4s, and they set up wildlife cameras at known and potential burrows to track their burrow and fledgling success throughout the season. And this also required not only setting up all this equipment across remote lava flow fields, but routine camera maintenance and detection surveys throughout the summer. For my work in Hakalau, I still continue to do nene monitoring since we do have an off-season population in certain areas. The stars on the map in red are outlining areas where nene still gather for foraging throughout the summer, especially in the unit disconnected to the left. We have a Malua Reservoir, which is a larger water basin that the nene are attracted to since it's a large source of water. So I continued monitoring those areas, and then through the Ha'oli Maloa Foundation, I was able to receive funding to buy multiple song leaders and start testing their ability to catch any nene call in these areas, along with recording their distribution. With the start of my song leader use, I also reached out to researchers within the Lohe Lab in order to receive training on bioacoustics, especially Raven and Perch, a machine learning algorithm that can learn how to pick out certain vocalizations as they're categorized. It was definitely a new technology for me to start to learn in the summer, but I was passionate and motivated to learn more about these remote sensing techniques, since I know that they are and will continue to be an important part of conservation and native species monitoring. Also throughout the summer, I had a lot of very fun additional summer opportunities. I assisted with the Bandrup Storm Petrel Burrow Detection Survey, which included the conservation detector dogs. And so with their handler, they were tasked with finding, marking potential burrows, and which would then help our monitoring efforts over there by putting up wildlife cameras to track if we actually did get visual confirmation of the dog's detections. I got to help our great our native seed collection team a few times throughout the summer as they collected seeds throughout the refuge, and also were monitoring plant distribution and health. And then another cool project I got to work on was with the Bandrup Storm Petrel camera maintenance, but also I got to help test some of their algorithms for picking out through hundreds of hours of wildlife camera footage, track any invasive predator and petrel detections. So I went through the footage and for some cameras and human checked it. Towards the end of my first summer, I was fortunate enough to be able to present at the Hawaiʻi Conservation Conference. I presented my first speed talk at a conference on my results from the data analysis of the previous nene nesting database. My more conclusive findings, there's no significant influence on refuge units specifically, but it did slightly lean towards years, especially in the later part of that decade. This was a very, very informative experience, as I got to learn more on my strengths and weaknesses as a presenter and work on those. So, with the end of summer, going into fall 2025, and the start of the nene nesting season, I was very excited to set up all the song meters that I'd gotten through the and I set up an official map for the song meters I would put out to cover as much of the nene foraging and nesting area as possible. However, there were complications because in October we also had the federal government shutdown, which did complicate transportation up to the refuge. Fortunately, my research permit was approved beforehand through Hilo, which I was grateful for. So with myself and the help of my fellow internship friend, we were able to set up 20 song meters up in Pu'akala, which is the primary foraging and nesting. And then we also set up song meters in the outer areas I had talked about of Malua, Honahina, by the administrative unit. Going into the 2026 nene nesting season, some other an ATB UTB training that I got to be a part of. On the left, I have a map of the nests that we monitored throughout the season, 5 of which being within Pu'akala unit, and one of them actually being within the administrative unit underneath the UH cabin. So I monitored that one and when it was discovered until they did hatch. Unfortunately, these nests were not successful with their fledgling success. Due to especially there being larger storm events during this season. Also, I was part of the ATB-UTB training, which was definitely helpful since many of my song meters were out in some very far remote places on the refuge. So getting that skill set, being able to use those was very helpful. I was here for another year. I was fortunate to be part of the new Find Your Wild event, also celebrating Hakalau Forest's 40th anniversary. While restoration efforts have been going on even longer, Hakalau Forest was originally established as a National Wildlife Refuge in 1985. So this Find Your Wild event was very special in showing the public the work that our staff does and the amazing plants and animal species that we protect over here. Also within the fall, I had a previous undergraduate professor reach out to me, and I got to be able to join for a volunteer weekend with the Kapi'akalani Community College Ecology Club. It was great to see her again and to talk more about birds with people whose first time coming to Hakalau. And we did native outplanting, so within the Pu'akala unit, and then had a whole day of birding, which I loved. Into this current spring, one of the first training opportunities I got to have was wilderness first aid training. This was not only had many useful skills that were taught, like making a splint, learning how to disinfect and pack wounds. It was also a great team building event. I was very thankful to be able to be part of it. Also, at the beginning of spring, as the nene season at Hakalau was wrapping up, I began to work also now part-time at PTA again. One of the first projects I got to assist of was helping with the acoustic recording unit setup. So these recording units are very cool because they not only detect bird sync bills, but they're also being tested to sending off to a server that identifies it in real time. So I helped with setting up some of these units along the forest bird transects at PTA, and I'm interested in learning more about this technology and research. Just earlier this month, I got to be able to speak about my HCC presentation at the Nene Recovery Action Group meeting. This was a collection of researchers and land managers across the state, and we discussed many of the current status of populations between the islands and the threats towards the statewide nene population. The struggles that we've had at Hakalau with monitoring to fledgling are something that people within the state on Hawaiʻi Island are also experiencing, especially with the storm and dry conditions beforehand. Also discussed a monitoring practice for detecting avian pox and the threat of toxoplasmosis, which again brings in the importance of predator control within our refuge units. Moving on to last week, I was able to participate again in the Hakalau Forest Bird Surveys for 2026. This was something I've been looking forward to since the last survey, and I had been practicing my bird identification, especially with calls. So I was tested on my first day of the Forest Bird Surveys and was able to be promoted to primary bird counter, which I was very, very excited about. So going through these deeper, lower forest transects, I was able to see more akepa and other more rare native avian and plant species. I saw my first happy-faced spider in real life in that picture over there in the corner. As a primary, and I hope to build my skills in identification even more in the future. Currently, I am getting ready to close out my data collection for acoustic recording as the nene season has been ending. And then I will continue taking all my recordings from my song meters and acoustic files for data analysis, especially with using the perch algorithm, which will, after training it, pick out any aggressive triumph ceremony related calls and use that to see if it can track how long a brood or pair was in a certain section, and hopefully be able to answer how effective these song meters can be for native species monitoring. I'm also, as Springer said, preparing for a potential transition into federal employment placement through pathways, hopefully as refuge biologist as Hakalau. I'm very much looking forward to continuing to work with some really great people in conservation. Everyone has been so dedicated and smart and imaginative. And throughout this internship, I've just been grateful to be able to learn from everyone that I've worked with. And I really hope I can continue working conservation here, monitoring species as they undergo many environmental changes and be able to help with protections and ways of encouraging their populations. To so many people, but I can't fit them all on one slide, so I filled it out as much as I can. My internship advisors, Springer, Rogelio, thank you for being here, and Lisa for the UH side. I'd like to thank Donna Ball, my first internship advisor, and everyone in Hakalau Forest, and everyone in the Semel Wildlife Monitoring crew. It's been really amazing to work with everyone. Holy Mauloa Foundation, the Lohe Lab, of course TCBES, and my cohort, my internship cohort, and my family, especially my nieces and nephew, Moana, Tia, and Sia. I do a lot of this work so they can be able to see these species in the future and their connection to our culture. So thank you very much.
We do have time for question or two. So would anybody like to have that?
That's a great question. Just repeating that for the video. Do any nene do the aggressive stance towards me, and do I have? That's a lesson I learned very early on in surveys. Some of the males are extra aggressive, which I admire because they're protecting their brood. But they have they do like the snake neck kind of movement, and they have ran out that big before, like open mouth hissing. And you do have to learn. I just do like a hiss, and then they're really all show. Like they stop within like a foot of you with their mouth open and just like, what do I do now? And, if I've seen any preliminary results from my acoustic work. Throughout the summer, I was able to see that they were utilizing the Malua Reservoir more. I have not gone into full analysis throughout the breeding season yet, but I have seen that their aggressive and triumph ceremony calls are very detectable on acoustic recording. So I'm hopeful that it will be able to track pairs and broods as they're utilizing our areas, and then seeing if when they're heading out into the forest. Yes. Yes.
So, all these skills that you gained.
Question, if is there any skill that I appreciate the most in like a driver in the future work? It's really hard. From my internship and from school, I've learned a lot these past 2 years. I would say I am grateful from so many people. I've learned more about birds and plants. I think being able to not only recognize, what they are and their ecological function, but also their cultural connection. I'm appreciated to that because it makes me feel more connected. And it does encourage me to go into conservation more because all these species are vital parts of Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander culture, and conserving them is also cultural preservation in my view, and I definitely believe that more from what all I've learned in the past 2 years.